Welcome back, everybody, to the Seeing Red MMA podcast here. Of course, my name is Dustin, going over a very, very interesting card this weekend. As you can see, it is UFC 299 Fight Week. Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, the rematch for the UFC bantamweight title. Also in the co-main event, you got Benoit Saint Denis versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier, along with a whole bunch of other fights that really holds its own and might even be considered slightly better than UFC 300 coming up here in about a month. But we're going to go over this card this weekend, just to start it at the top. Sean O'Malley was set to make the first defense of his title against Chito Vera. Obviously, if you are a MMA fan and have been watching for a while, you know that this is a rematch for when O'Malley did hurt his leg in the first round against Chito Vera, and Chito followed him to the ground and proceeded to TKO him in the first round. So, very interesting. I mean, if you go back and rewatch that fight, we all know that Chito is a bit of a slow starter. He tends to take over in the later rounds, especially in 5-round fights, late into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. And we all know that Suga is an early starter. We've seen that time and time again, especially with all of his first-round knockouts that he has. We all know that Chito is extremely durable, probably the most durable fighter in the UFC. So I don't think there will be a first-round finish in this fight here, I believe, to go the distance. But it is an interesting matchup because we are 3 years removed from the original fight, and both men have definitely grown in their MMA career and definitely have gotten better over the years since their first meeting. Obviously, Chito Vera has been in multiple main events. Most recently, his last main event was Corey Sandhagen. I know his last fight was Pedro Munoz on the card of Sterling versus O'Malley. Wasn't a great performance, but I mean, Chito's been out there pounding the stone since their first encounter, and O'Malley since their last encounter. I believe he fought Almeida, he fought Paiva, fought Yan, obviously, and then won the belt against Sterling. Might be missing a couple of fights in between there. Maybe, I don't know if Chris Moutinho was before or after Chito, but either way, they definitely have had some fights under their belt. If I had to say, just based off their recent fights, who I think has improved more, I would be dumb not to say O'Malley, just because, I mean, he is the one that was able to knock out Aljamain Sterling, who was recognized by some fans as the greatest bantamweight champion of all time. I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, his wins are over Cejudo, who, I mean, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have retired, and, I mean, gave Aljamain a tough fight, but he beat Cejudo, he beat TJ, he beat Yan. That's about it. I still hold Dominic Cruz as the best bantamweight champion of all time, but we're not here to talk about former champions. We're here to talk about this weekend's card. We all know that O'Malley is an extremely long and rangy fighter and really knows how to put himself in positions where he can be dangerous, especially with the stance switching. He likes to throw that teep kick from the orthodox, land into southpaw, big step back, and then go in for the overhand left. Excuse me while this lock screen. Gotta fix that. There we go. We're back. But Chito, I mean, the most durable fighter in the UFC, in my opinion. I mean, the man's never been wobbled, stunned, submitted, been in any kind of danger to be finished, really. I mean, we all know he had that fight with Sandhagen where I don't know how it was a split decision, but Sandhagen basically ran him over with the grappling, but was never really any danger of being finished in that fight. I don't think we're going to end up with a finish in this main event. If I had to put money on it, which I'm not betting on the main event because it can go either way in my opinion, I think O'Malley probably gets a unanimous decision. I think he probably wins the first 3 rounds and then Chito maybe takes over in the 4th and 5th, but I don't think Chito can do enough damage late in those rounds in order to get himself the win. He might be able to, who knows? But just based off recent performances and how good Sean has looked, how good Chito has looked, I'm riding with Sean. I think he is going to win just based off a unanimous decision or even split decision. Who knows? This might be a dogfight, but I don't think a finish is what we're going to be seeing here in this event. I heard Luke Thomas talking about this. Another narrative that I haven't heard people talk about since the first fight with Chito is the durability of O'Malley. We've seen O'Malley hurt his legs and feet in multiple fights with the Petr Yan Ware, Sukumtosh, and then also with the Chito Vera fight. So there used to be a narrative saying that, oh, O'Malley is brittle, oh, he can't take punishment to the body, his body will crumple under pressure. Those narratives are all out the window since then. After going to war with Petr Yan, which, however you scored that fight, me personally, I thought Yan won that fight, but hey, whatever. We're way past that at this point. No sense in talking about it now. But, yeah, that narrative's out the window. O'Malley is a good fighter. He is a great fighter. I think if he gets past Chito, and especially if he looks dominant, I don't think he's going to finish Chito, like I said, but if he gets like a dominant decision win, he's going to get Merab. There's no easy fights coming Suga's way if he gets past Chito. You got Merab, then probably Corey, and who knows, maybe even Umar. There's really not much, there's no easy fight in his path there. Maybe Song Yadong goes out there and starches Petr Yan, which a style like Song Yadong does benefit O'Malley's style. But, man, Song Yadong can thump. And we'll talk about that fight here in a second here, too. But overall, this is a great main event. I mean, it is a grudge match. These guys do not like each other. I know that they say they do not have animosity, but every time they do cross paths, immediately are talking shit to each other. So I don't expect there to be a glove touch at the beginning of the fight. Maybe if they do go to war, maybe going into the fifth round after they've been slugging it out, maybe they earn each other's respects and then touch gloves. But I don't think you're going to see any hugs and kisses going on in this one. O'Malley, unanimous decision. That's my official prediction. But the fight that honestly interests me more than the main event is our co-main event. Dustin Poirier, I think he's number 3 lightweight right now, taking on Benoit Saint Denis, number 12 lightweight. Now, this is rumored to be Poirier's last fight. I've heard multiple people saying it. I haven't heard it directly from Poirier, so I'm not quoting him, but a lot of people have speculated that if Poirier does lose this fight, he is going to retire. I mean, this is going to be his 30th UFC fight. He's 35 years old. He's not getting any younger. I don't think he's going to be able to get to a title shot again, which does make me sad. I am a huge Poirier fan, and at one point I thought he was the best lightweight on the planet, and then a guy named Charles do Bronx put an end to that, even though he looked good in that fight. But the interesting thing is that Poirier was willing to take a fight against a guy who was even outside the top 10. I know Benoit has been on a 5-fight win streak, just a tear. His last fight was a head kick knockout over Matt Frevola. But that's just the thing, though. It was Matt Frevola. No disrespect to Frevola. I'm a big Steamroller fan. But it's also Matt Frevola. It's not like he went out there and starched like Beneil Dariush, or he beat the shit out of Renato Moicano or Dan Hooker or nothing like that. It's kind of a weird fight that Dustin would accept. I think maybe he had kind of like the UFC by the balls there a little bit and been like, hey, you want me to take this fight? You're going to have to pay me, which I think at this point in Dustin's career, if the UFC does offer him a fight where it doesn't necessarily get him to a title shot, they're going to have to pay him, which I think he did. I think he did end up with the bag in this fight. So I expect him to be paid pretty handsomely. I'm interested to see if the payouts will be disclosed. If they are, I'm interested to see exactly what he's going to get paid. But at the same time, I mean, this is kind of considered one of those like changing of the guard fights. The old guy that's been around forever versus the new guy who has just come on the scene within the last couple of years. And I mean, if Benoit can get a dominant win over Poirier, whether if it is like a 3-round just drag-out decision where he definitely decisively wins the fight, we're off to the races there. I think he would get the loser of Charles versus Saryukian. But especially if he gets the finish, who knows? He might even get the winner of Charles versus Saryukian in a number 1 contender fight. Or he might even end up fighting someone like Justin Gaethje if he does get like a stoppage win over Poirier. But the thing is, you got to think about, Poirier has never lost back-to-back fights. He has always lost 1, 1-1, lost 1, 1-1. Even if he's been on a streak and loses that streak, he immediately bounces back and gets the win. We all know he is coming off that head kick knockout loss to Justin Gaethje, not too far removed from that, but far enough removed where I don't think there's a question about Poirier's chin. I mean, it is Justin Gaethje. Dude arguably is one of the hardest hitters in the UFC regardless of weight class, so no shame in that. But I don't really see the upside here for Poirier, unless it's just kind of like, this young guy thinks he can beat me? Let me show him what I'm about. Let me show him what the vet can do, which I think might be his mentality in something like this. But again, this is a very hard fight for me to pick. That's why I'm so intrigued by it, because we know Benoit is good. We don't know how good, because he hasn't fought anybody in the top 10, let alone even the top 5. So going from Frivola to Poirier is a massive step up, and that's an understatement. If he gets past Poirier, I will shut my mouth. I will be a Benoit fan. I am a Benoit fan, but I am a Poirier fan. I'm a ride or die Poirier fan. He's been my favorite fighter since I've gotten into the sport. But it's a very interesting fight. I do lean more towards Poirier in this one just because I know Benoit can get a little bit sloppy. But if Benoit can get in Poirier's face and not let him get his combinations off and mind his P's and Q's and just grind out a win, especially if he mixes in takedowns really well, I could definitely see Benoit getting a unanimous decision here. But this is a 5-round co-main event, though, so don't have to worry about him starting off fast just to get 3 rounds under his belt and keep going. Poirier has definitely had that 5-round experience, so we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I am leaning more towards Poirier. I think Poirier probably gets it done by decision. I think Benoit is pretty durable, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's a very intriguing fight, very interesting. Also, this is a big move as well too. Michael Venom Page, former Bellator title challenger, is making his UFC debut against Kevin Holland. Now, if you are aware of Michael Venom Page, you know that he has been known for some of the craziest highlight reels, cracking the skull of Cyborg in Bellator with that flying knee. Obviously, him rolling the Pokeball when Pokemon Go is popping off. So, I mean, he has been known to the hardcore fans, and maybe you've even seen him through like a viral video just because of how viral it went. You maybe have not known his name, but you're like, oh, I recognize that guy based off this video I saw of him starching somebody. Like, he had that one, I forget who he fought, but he basically leg kicked somebody and their knee exploded. Like, this dude is very explosive, but he's 36 years old. I think it's a little bit too much too late, especially taking on a guy like Kevin Holland. But here's the thing, though. Kevin Holland is a goofy guy. He can go out there and just, if he is on there and means business, I expect him to kind of use his grappling to get the win over MVP. But we kind of know Kevin Holland likes to test himself, especially if he goes out there like a Wonder Boy. He's like, I'm going to go have a kickboxing fight with Wonder Boy. Maybe it is not the most advised move to go with, but it is what Kevin Holland tends to do. So just with I would say, the dynamicness of Michael Venom Page and just the explosiveness he has, especially with the just not unreliability, but just the uncertainty of how Kevin Holland is going to fight. That fight, to me, is honestly a toss-up. I mean, logically, you would go with Kevin Holland to get the win. He's younger, he's bigger, and also he can thump. And we've seen MVP get knocked out before, especially against Douglas Lima. I mean, that is Douglas Lima, one of the best welterweights in the world at that time. But age is not on your side. You're 36 years old making your UFC debut against a young guy who is on the verge of title contention. It's going to be a long night for MVP, I think. I got Kevin Holland either by TKO or I think I got Kevin Holland by finish. I'm hoping he goes out there and fights the way he needs to in order to get the win. So hopefully he takes him down. Hopefully he is able to get a TKO. Maybe drops him on the feet, falls him to the ground, and finishes off there. However he wants to go about doing it. But as long as he minds his P's and Q's and he follows the game plan that his coaches put together, I think this is a pretty easy win for Kevin Holland now. Who knows, though? Watch this bite me in the ass because, like I said, Michael Venom Page is extremely dynamic. Also, you have Gilbert Burns on the card taking on Della Maddalena. Now, this fight is interesting because it's also another fight like the Poirier Saint Denis fight where it is a changing of the guard. There is a 10-year age gap between them. Gilbert Burns is 37 years old. Jack is 27 years old. Jack has undefeated in the UFC. I know he has coming off back-to-back split decision victories over aforementioned Kevin Holland, and then I don't even remember the other guy's name, but back-to-back split decision wins. Gilbert is a very smart and cerebral fighter, especially he showed that in the Neil Magny fight when he just immediately took him down and showed off his grappling credentials. I know he is coming off the loss to Bilal Muhammad where he was injured in that fight. I believe it was an injured shoulder. But regardless of that, I really think Jack is a contender waiting to be named that. I think he does belong in the top 10, and I think Jack can definitely make a title run. I think it's his time. He has such good boxing. Doesn't just do one or two combinations. It's three or four or five shot combinations there. He has good finishes in the UFC, like over Randy Brown. Honestly think Jack gets it done. Who knows? Maybe the grappling does pose a threat to Jack, and he doesn't really know how to respond to that. But we've never really seen him have to grapple except for that one guy that I can't remember his name where he fought in the Apex on the Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva card. But he still got the job done, especially he was coming on late in the third round, landing good body shots and things like that. I think Jack can mix it up so well, and his boxing is so tight, and he knows how to keep his distance, that I think it's going to give Gilbert trouble, and it's going to make Gilbert shoot when the opportunity doesn't really present itself, and he's going to have to try and muscle the takedown, which is not going to benefit him. So I got Jack via decision. I don't think he's going to be able to put out Gilbert. I don't think anybody's put out Gilbert since Usman, really. I think Usman was the last guy to knock out Gilbert or finish Gilbert regardless. That's going to be a barn burner. Can't wait for that. But what's really going to be a barn burner, in my opinion, is probably I would say, one of the most anticipated fights I've been waiting for since it was announced, and which is actually opening up the main card, which is insane to me, is Petr, I'm going to say it right, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Oh, if you're a fight fan and you're a hardcore fight fan and you know both these guys, I mean, probably, even if you're a casual, you know who Petr Yan is. But Song Yadong, man, he is a killer. He knows how to grapple, trained under Uriah Faber at Team Alpha Male. But, man, he's got thunder in his punches. He's coming off that win over Chris Gutierrez, where it was the decision win. Used a lot of his grappling just to avoid the heavy leg kicks of Gutierrez. Fight before that, knocked out Ricky Simone in the 5th round. And Ricky has been known to have one of the best chins in the bantamweight division, and he was able to put him out as well, too. Song Yadong has some crispy boxing. He's knocked out so many guys, whether it's with the hands, the feet, whatever. But we all know Petr Yan, former champion. He is coming off of he is coming off 3-fight loss streak. I mean, it was Sterling, then O'Malley. Regardless of how you scored it, it's still a loss. And then Merab. I mean, it's not like he's losing to bums. I mean, he's losing off to former champion. So former champion, current champion, and number one contender. I mean, there's no shame in losing to those guys. It just sucks that he's not had the greatest luck with the opportunities. I think this is a perfect opponent for Petr Yan to get back on track because they have such similar styles. I think Petr Yan's grappling is probably slightly better than Song Yadong's, but we'll see. Because, I mean, Song Yadong is traditional wrestling style of grappling rather than Petr Yan uses his trips and throws and things like that. So we'll see how that plays out, but I would have to go. I'm leaning more towards Petr Yan, even though that fight is like the odds are basically even. Last time I checked, I think they were both like a minus 110. Like I've never seen, it's been a while since I've seen two fighters both with the same odds, which means it's a toss-up. Like I would stay away from that, keeping it on your parlay. All I know is you got to tune into that one because it is going to be thunderous. It is going to be such a good fight, and I cannot wait for that one. And I'm so glad it's opening up the main card just to get us that little bit of juice, that first hit before we start coming back to more. Then you got Gilbert, Gilbert and Jack. Then you got Kevin and MVP. Then you got Poirier, Saint Denis, O'Malley, Chito. Like this main card is phenomenal. I mean, I would say it's definitely on a scale, like a grading scale, I'd say it's an A plus around there. I mean, it's so good. But also, I mean, the feature fight on the prelims, Jalton Almeida is taking on Curtis Blades. We know that they were scheduled to fight earlier when Jalton ended up fighting Derek Lewis and basically just refused to submit him and just sit on top of him and mount for 5 rounds. So there's that. But I think it's a really good matchup for Curtis because, I mean, I don't think Jalton's striking's that good. I think Curtis does have better boxing. If he can mind the P's and Q's and kind of stop the takedowns and things like that. And Curtis does have size over Jalton. Jalton has been a 205er for most of his career. Curtis Blades has always been a heavyweight, a big heavyweight at the very least, with a nasty ground and pound. So if Curtis can get on top, I mean, we saw what Curtis did to Alistair Overeem, basically shattered his face with elbows. And, he's done that with other guys as well, too. So I think this one is basically a fight to see who's going to maybe possibly fight for the interim belt against Tom Aspinall. If Tom doesn't fight Stipe or Jones first, that's a good fight. I mean, I got Curtis probably winning that one. Also, Macy Barber fighting Caitlin Chookagian. I know Caitlin Chookagian recently got married, so her last name changed. This is also a good fight because Caitlin Chookagian has never lost to anybody but champions. Now, here's the thing. Macy Barber is on a 5-fight win streak. Also, if you look at it, you would think just based off that information, oh, well, Caitlin's only lost to champions. I'm going to take Caitlin. Hold on there. Caitlin is 35. Macy Barber is 25. Another 10-year age gap. With the hype that Barber is coming in off, she's really coming into her stride. She's really kind of coming into her own as a fighter. And I think with that kind of just confidence, especially with the 5-fight win streak, your last fight was a finish, which is hard to do in women's MMA, regardless of what you say. It is hard to do in women's MMA is to get a finish. She finished Amanda Ribas. I got Macy Barber probably by decision to play it safe, but I would not be surprised if she's able to finish Chookagian. We've seen Chookagian finish before. Jessica Andrade finished her. I believe Shevchenko finished her. I got Macy Barber. Michelle Pereira fighting Michael Olejniczak. Michelle Pereira is fighting in front of a crowd and expect him to do some wild, crazy, stupid shit because he loves fighting in front of a crowd and putting on a show. Olejniczak's got really good boxing, really good power. Give me Olejniczak. I'll take that one. I might be going out of order. I don't have the card pulled up, the full start to finish. I'm just going off the fights that I know that are on there. There's a good one. There's a recent signing, UFC heavyweight now, who is 4-0, Robelis Desponge. Probably saying it wrong, but who cares? He's 6'7" with an 87-inch reach, the longest recorded reach in UFC history. His last 3 fights are a combined 19 seconds, which is impressive, but also worries me. Because if you look at his competition, it's a bunch of no-names. Like most of the guys that he fought in his last 3 fights haven't fought since. He's taking on Josh Parisian, who is basically being brought in here to get Robelis just to get him a win in the UFC. He's basically brought in to make Robelis look good. But if Robelis doesn't mind his P's and Q's, I can definitely see him getting basically snuggled for 3 rounds and just sat on top of until one of them gasses out. So, I mean, that one could be a toss-up. I mean, history repeats itself. I would say Parisian gets knocked out in the first round probably, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance with Parisian getting the win. Either way, I'm very excited about that one too because it is just a freak of nature that's getting brought into the UFC. And, I mean, let's be honest. We all love it when freaks fight in the UFC. That's what makes this sport so great. You get to see these giant dudes come in there. And it's not like this guy's a wrestler or something like that. He's a Taekwondo specialist. He got the bronze medal in the Olympics for Taekwondo. And he's a 6'7" heavyweight. Taekwondo, that dude can probably thump. And based off of his victories, I don't know how good these guys' chins are because he's fighting on regional scenes, starching them left and right. So, Parisian's probably going to get slept. If I had to guess. Who else is on this card? Oh, Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. This is an interesting fight because Pedro Munoz has been kind of up and down as of late. I know his last fight was the loss to Chito Vera, which was a to be honest, a very boring fight. That fight sucked. Let's be real. Two of the most durable guys that are notoriously slow starters. Nobody's getting finished in that fight. As soon as I saw it was announced back when it was announced, I was like, oh, this is going the distance for sure. And it did. Went the distance. But, yeah. Kyler Phillips is dynamic. Trains with O'Malley sometimes. I know he's from the lab here in Arizona. Represent. Experienced guy versus a newcomer. This seems to be the trend of the card here. Newcomer versus vet. Newcomer versus vet. Yada, 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 yada. All the way down the line here. I do lean more towards Kyler Phillips. I think he's just more dynamic. I think his movement's really good. But the thing that does worry me is that he has a very wide stance because he has that kind of karate style where he's throwing a bunch of weird shit. Pedro Munoz might get him with the leg kicks. So keep an eye out for that. I don't even know what else is on the card, honestly. But those are the main fights that I'm looking forward to. I mean, regardless of that, UFC 299 is, I know it's only March, but it is one of the best cards of the year. Definitely a better card than 298, Volkanovski versus Poirier. Even though that card was stacked as well, too. I feel like this card has more of a guarantee for finishes across the board than 298 had. So, definitely one I'm very excited for. Just based off the main card, if I had to pick the winners, going O'Malley, going Poirier, Holland, Jack, and Piotr. Those are the 5 guys I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for everybody just because I am a fan of each one of these guys that is on the card. But if I had to pick winners, those are my guys. But that's pretty much it here. So make sure you tune in March 9th, Miami, Florida, UFC 299. I know out here in Arizona, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time is the main card. So tune in accordingly. But, yeah, it's going to be a great fight. Definitely will do a post-fight reaction to this as well, too. Probably Saturday night as well, so keep an eye out for that. But that's all we got here for today. UFC 299 is going to be a banger. So hope you like it. If you do, make sure to like the video and leave a comment. Subscribe at Seeing Red MMA. And you have yourself a great rest of your day. Until next time, see ya.